So let's talk about depression for a moment, or chronic stress or extreme overwhelm. Depression is a condition, by the way, that's based on a lot of stress, underlying stress in the mind and body, and so. Depression being, and again, in the beginning of the book, in the introduction, I kind of define, really what depression is, which is a myriad of things, and depending on the person, it's going to be different. It could be like a disease in some way, where like how pneumonia attacks the lungs, and it's a neurobiological, physiological experience where you, as John Keats, the poet John Keats said, you're underwater and you scarcely kick to come to the top. And it can also be like allergies for other people, where it's kind of like this, ongoing sense of discontent that's there, but it's not so heavy, but it's just kind of, you're in this kind of general malaise to some degree. And for some people, they don't even, the word depression doesn't even come into their mind, but it's extreme periods of overwhelm in their life, and or lots of anxiety that comes, which really kind of holds us down. But it all falls under a spectrum of depression, and so it is. One thing that happens is any of these conditions, depressive is an aversive experience to the brain. In other words, it's an experience, and if you've experienced it, like you may have if you're watching this right now, it's something the brain says, and you would identify with this. That's not something I want to experience again. I want to try and stay as far away from that as possible. That was a really difficult, hard experience, or if you're in it right now, you know that. And so what happens is these different elements get conditioned together. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, and behaviors get conditioned together. The thoughts may be something like, nothing ever works out for me, or life is hopeless, or nothing, something is wrong with me, I'm unworthy, I'm defective, I'm deficient in some way. All kinds of self-criticism may kind of rain down, or blaming other people, or blaming the world. Different things may come up. Different stories arise that are part of this kind of depressive experience. Then different emotions are connected to it too. There's the heaviness, there's the tiredness, maybe there's anxiety for some that are kind of combined with it. There's a sadness, there's different things like that, loneliness. Then there's the sensations. There's the heaviness in the body, or the numbness that's there. And then there's behaviors that usually are some kind of avoidant-like behaviors, such as isolating, or maybe sleeping too much, or maybe eating that whole bag of potato chips, or not exercising, or all these behaviors go. So thoughts, emotions, sensations, and behaviors get pulled together, kind of in some kind of habit loop. I call it a depressive loop, and like a trauma. So when you get bit by a dog, your mind and body fuse together that experience, so that if you saw a little chihuahua on a leash walking around the corner, you'd flinch. This depressive loop has been conditioned in the brain, where any cue from any thought, emotion, sensation, or behavior now becomes like a domino effect. So it's almost like you can imagine there's a circle, and there's gasoline drawn around the circle. All you need is a match on one part of the circle to light the whole circle up. So all you need is that negative thought. All you need is that feeling of tiredness. All you need is that emotion of sadness. All you need is that moment of isolating or oversleeping or something like that, to then ignite all the neural connections that are part of this complex in the brain that I call the depressive loop. So all of a sudden you find yourself like, God, I'm feeling depressed. I don't even know how I got here. And that's because the trauma has been reignited in that way, just from one of those. So in other words, falling into depression or any of this has never been your fault. It's not your fault in any way. It's part of a kind of a conditioned trauma that gets ignited. And one thing that we have to know is that once we get into that, to see if there's in other words, we can train our brains to be able to get a little bit of distance perspective on it, to recognize what we need, what's most adaptive and helpful for us in that moment. And the way we do that is by starting to ignite some of these natural